Let me guess. You've been telling yourself, okay, 2026 is the year I finally start investing. You've got some money sitting in your savings account. Maybe $8K dollar, maybe $25K dollar, maybe $40K dollar. It's just there, doing absolutely nothing. You open your banking app, look at it, feel slightly guilty, then close it. And every time you see a headline about someone who turned $10K dollar into $200K dollar with some stock or crypto play, you feel this tiny punch in your stomach. You think, I'm missing out, I'm late, I should be doing something. But at the same time, you're terrified of doing the wrong thing. If that's you, this video is going to save you a lot of money. My name is Tom, and I spend way too much time thinking about how normal people build wealth without ruining their lives. If you're someone who wants to invest but feels overwhelmed, behind, or scared of making a costly mistake, make sure to hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up if this helps you out. Here's the thing, before you invest a single dollar in 2026, there are 5 things you need to do. Not sexy things, not this stock will 10x things, not AI is the future things, boring things. But these 5 things are the difference between someone who quietly builds real wealth and someone who constantly feels stressed, reactive, and unlucky. And I'm going to challenge you early here. Most people think investing is about picking the right assets. It's not. It's about building the right foundation, and the foundation is psychological before it's mathematical. Let's start with number 1. The first thing you need to do before investing in 2026 is build a real emergency fund. And I don't mean I've got $1.5K dollar in checking. I mean a real, boring, unexciting 3 to 6 months of essential expenses. Now you might be thinking, Tom, inflation is high, cash loses value. Why would I let $15K dollars sit there doing nothing? Look, according to Federal Reserve data, nearly 40% of Americans can't cover a $400 emergency without borrowing or selling something. That's not because they're irresponsible. It's because life is unpredictable. Car breaks down, dog needs surgery, you lose your job, medical bill hits. Here's the math. Let's say your monthly essentials, rent, food, insurance, utilities, minimum debt payments, total $3K dollar. 3 months is $9K dollar. 6 months is $18K dollar. If you invest $15K dollar instead of holding it as an emergency fund and the market drops 30%, which historically happens more often than people emotionally remember, your $15K dollar becomes $10.5K dollar, and then you lose your job. Now you're forced to sell at the bottom. That's how people lock in losses. The emergency fund isn't about returns. It's about optionality. It's about never being forced to make a financial decision from panic. Psychologically, this matters more than you think. When you know you have 6 months covered, you invest differently. You don't check your portfolio every day. You don't sell just because the news is scary. You don't panic when your account drops $4K dollar in a week because you don't need the money. And investing works when you don't need the money. I've seen people skip this step because they're impatient. They want progress. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Building an emergency fund is investing. It's investing in stability. It's investing in emotional control. And emotional control is what makes compounding possible. Second thing you need to do before investing in 2026, get brutally clear on your cash flow. Not, I think I save around $500 a month. I mean, track it for at least 60 days. Because here's what usually happens. Someone makes $70K dollar a year. After taxes, maybe they bring home $52K dollar. That's about $4.3K dollar a month. They think they're bad with money because they only save $300. But when we actually look at the numbers, $900 on eating out and delivery, $400 on subscriptions, random Amazon purchases, and small leaks, $600 car payment on a vehicle they bought because I deserve it. It's not that they don't earn enough. It's that their money has no direction. Here's a quick example. Let's say you earn $80K dollar. After taxes, maybe $60K dollar take home. That's $5K dollar per month. If your fixed costs are $3K dollar and your variable spending is $1.7K dollar, you have $300 left. But if you intentionally reduce variable spending by just $500, not extreme, just conscious, now you have $800 per month to invest. $800 per month at an 8% average annual return over 20 years. That's roughly $470K dollar. The difference between I can't invest much and I'm building $500,000 is often $500 in unnoticed spending. This is where psychology kicks in. We underestimate small recurring expenses because they feel harmless. A $40 subscription? No big deal. A $120 dinner? We work hard, right? But investing investing isn't built on big heroic moves, it's built on consistent surplus. If you don't know exactly how much surplus you have, investing becomes random, and random investing leads to random results. Third thing you need to do before investing in 2026, kill high interest debt. And yes, I know someone's going to comment, but the market averages 10%. Okay, credit card interest averages 20% plus. If you carry $12K on a credit card at 22% interest, you're effectively losing $2.6K per year in interest alone. That's a guaranteed negative 22% return. Show me an investment that guarantees you 22% and we'll talk. Paying off that card is mathematically equivalent to earning 22% risk-free. Now, there's nuance. If you have a 3% mortgage from a few years ago, that's different. If you have a 4% student loan and you're disciplined, that's a strategic decision. But 18%, 20%, 25% consumer debt, that has to go before investing. And here's the deeper reason. Debt keeps you psychologically fragile. When you invest while carrying high-interest debt, you're building wealth on top of stress. Every market dip feels worse because you know you're also bleeding interest. Imagine trying to fill a bucket while there's a giant hole in the bottom. That's what investing with high interest debt feels like. Plug the hole first. Fourth thing you need to do before investing in 2026, define what the money is actually for. This is where most people skip ahead. They think investing is one big bucket. It's not. Money for a house in 2 years should not be invested the same way as money for retirement in 30 years. Let's break this down. If you plan to buy a house in 24 months and you need $40K for a down payment, investing that in a volatile stock portfolio is reckless because markets don't care about your timeline. If you invest $40K and the market drops 25% right before you're ready to buy, you now have $30K. Are you going to delay your life plans or sell at a loss? Short-term money needs stability, high-yield savings, money market, short-term bonds, long-term money. That's where equities shine. Historically, broad stock markets have returned around 7 to 10% annually over long periods, but in any given year they can swing wildly, up 25%, down 20%. If your timeline is 20 years, that volatility is noise. If your timeline is 2 years, it's risk. Here's an analogy. Investing without a defined timeline is like boarding a flight without knowing the destination. Are you packing for Alaska or Hawaii? You can't choose the right strategy without knowing where you're going. And psychologically, having a defined purpose changes everything. When you invest for retirement someday, it feels abstract. When you invest for financial independence by 50 or freedom to work part-time in 15 years, it becomes concrete. You're less likely to panic sell. You're less likely to chase trends. Which leads to the fifth thing you must do before investing in 2026. You need to build your investment philosophy before you buy anything. And this is where I'm going to challenge a big assumption. Most people don't lose money because they picked the wrong stock. They lose money because they had no strategy when things got volatile. They buy based on excitement. They sell based on fear. According to multiple behavioral finance studies, including research popularized by Dalbar, the average investor significantly underperforms the market, often by several percentage points per year, largely due to timing decisions. Buying high, selling low, chasing performance. Let me show you what that looks like in real numbers. If the market returns 8% annually for 30 years, $10K becomes about $100K. But if you underperform by just 2%, earning 6% instead of 8%, that same $10K becomes around $57K. That's nearly half, 2%. That's not about stock picking genius, that's about behavior. Your philosophy might be, I invest in low-cost index funds every month, no matter what the headlines say. Or, I allocate 80% to diversified funds, 20% to higher risk ideas. Or, I rebalance once a year and ignore daily noise. But you need rules, because when the market drops 30%, and at some point it will, your emotions will scream at you to do something. And if you don't have rules, you will. Usually the wrong thing. Now, you might be thinking, okay, Tom, this all sounds cautious, but what about opportunity? What about AI? What about 2026 being a massive growth year? Look, opportunity doesn't disappear because you built a foundation. It actually multiplies. When you have an emergency fund, controlled cash flow, no toxic debt, clear timelines, a defined philosophy, you can invest aggressively if that aligns with your goals because you're not gambling, you're allocating. There's a difference. Gambling is hoping something works. Allocating is deciding how much risk fits your life. Let me tell you a quick story. A friend of mine, we'll call him Jake, started investing in 2020. He He put $20K into the market right before a downturn. Within weeks, his account dropped to $15K. He panicked and sold, locked in the loss. 6 months later, markets recovered. He felt stupid, so he bought back in, then another drop happened. He sold again. Over 2 years, despite markets generally trending upward, he barely broke even. Not because he picked terrible assets, because he had no framework, no emergency fund, no plan, no philosophy. Investing amplified his anxiety instead of his wealth. Contrast that with someone who invests $1K per month consistently for 10 years. That's $120K invested. At an average 8% return, that could grow to roughly $180K or more. Not flashy, not viral, but life-changing. And here's the deeper psychological truth. Humans are wired for short-term survival, not long-term compounding. We feel losses about twice as intensely as gains. That's called loss aversion. So when your portfolio drops $5K, it hurts more than the joy you felt when it gained $5K. Knowing that about yourself is powerful because then you can design a system that protects you from yourself. Automatic contributions, broad diversification, limited portfolio checking, pre-written rules for downturns. Write this down. When the market drops 20%, I will continue investing. Decide now, not in the moment, because in the moment your brain will try to protect you from perceived danger. But market volatility is not a tiger in the room. It's the price of admission for higher returns. So let's recap this simply. Before you invest in 2026, build 3 to 6 months of expenses in cash, track your cash flow and intentionally create surplus, eliminate high interest debt, define your timelines and match investments accordingly, and write down your investment philosophy. None of this will trend on social media. No one will brag about their fully funded emergency fund at a party. But these steps are what separate people who feel constantly behind from people who quietly build options. And here's what I want you to understand. Investing is not about becoming rich next year. It's about reducing future stress. It's about giving yourself choices. The choice to leave a job, the choice to move cities, the choice to take a sabbatical, the choice to help family. Money is stored freedom, and freedom requires structure. If you skip the structure, you might get lucky, but you probably won't get consistent, and consistency is what wins. So before you open that brokerage account in 2026 and start buying whatever's trending, slow down, set the foundation, do the math, understand your psychology, and then invest with intention. Because the goal isn't to look smart this year, it's to look back in 10 years and realize you built something solid. If this helped you think differently about investing, hit the like button. It genuinely helps more people see this. And if you want more videos where we break down the math and the psychology of money in a way that actually makes sense, subscribe. 2026 can be the year you start investing, but only if you do it the right way. I'll see you in the next one.